morning, everyone. I'm Amy Morse. Good morning on this sunny February morning, my second webinar of 2018. So I'm Amy Morse. Just to give you a very quick background on me and the reason I'm here today and what I'm going to talk about with you this morning. I'm a writing coach. Oh, I'm just going to close my email, otherwise it's going to be very annoying if that keeps beeping, isn't it? I'm a writing coach working with businesses, and in particular, I specialise in mentoring entrepreneurs who are writing a book, who are blogging. And this webinar this morning is all about blogging for professional development, because there's so many reasons to blog that go beyond just SEO for your website and being able to share stuff on social media. There's some overlooked aspects of blogging that often we don't think about. And chief of which I've kind of found in my experience as somebody who's been professionally blogging for about 5 years or so now, is that actually it's quite an enjoyable process, and it's actually quite a big part of personally my own creative and personal development, and therefore for other people as well. And often some of the feedback that I get with the clients that I mentor long term is that once they kind of start to get over their initial confidence barriers and the different challenges they have around blogging in particular, you know, things around confidence, getting the head around the technology, all that kind of stuff, how to kind of make it work properly, what to write about. Once they get into the swing of it, actually it can become quite a cathartic process and can really help you to find your voice. So this morning I'm just going to share a few tips with you on that, really. Just some things to think about, really. Things, areas to kind of consider when it comes to blogging. So just to give you a little bit of background in terms of how I started out blogging and how I'm here today. So my career, if you like, my day job started out in human resources, and I very quickly went into training. And then for a long time I worked as a skills trainer working with long-term unemployed people. So I was helping people to find their confidence, to find their voice, to be able to recognise what they could do instead of being held back by what they couldn't do or by what they were told they shouldn't do and all the rest of it. And so I did that for many years, and eventually ended up in Bristol in the UK, where I worked for an enterprise agency, again as a skills trainer. And the enterprise agency at the time was funded by the EU, and the idea of the project was that we took enterprise out into harder reached communities, more underprivileged parts of the city, if you like, places where people didn't have access to enterprise support, where perhaps they hadn't even considered it, places of really high unemployment, that kind of thing. And so a lot of the work of that project was not about encouraging people to start a business as such, but working with people who had business ideas and getting them to think about how perhaps they could create a job for themselves. So a lot of the work I did, again, that work that I did with long-term unemployed people kind of ended up feeding into that. So I worked with startups for about 5 years. So that was kind of my day job until 2015, when the enterprise project ran out of funding and closed down. But in the background, ever since I was a kid, I've always enjoyed writing. It was just something that I've always had as part of my life. I used to write terrible angsty poetry as a teenager. I started my first novel when I was 15. It's just something that I've always done. For many years I didn't really do very much in the way of creative writing, didn't really take it seriously, until in 2013, where I had been working on a book idea, having lived abroad for a short period of time. And I'd actually written 4 books while I was living overseas, and it was the 4th of those books that I'd started to draft that I actually thought would be a commercially viable project. And that book was The Bronze Box, which I finally published in 2013. And how that story relates to blogging is that in 2013, in the January of that year, I had a more or less finished first draft of the Bronze Box. And I had decided that that would be my year. That would be my year that I would tick off the thing off my bucket list, and I would actually be a published author. That was one of the dreams that I always had, and 2013 was going to be my year. And so I decided as a New Year's resolution to do one thing every day towards that ultimate goal of publishing a book. So I started a 365 project. And the way that I shared that project and tracked the progress was through blogging. So I initially just set up a blogspot, just a free blog to start with. And if blogging for personal reasons or professional development reasons, and it's not quite right for your business yet or something, is on your radar, then Blogger is a fantastic place to start. It's free. All you need is a Gmail address to set it up, and it has very similar functionality to, say, WordPress or another kind of web development platform that you might use to build your website, or have a website built for you for your business. Anyway, so I set up this blog in 2013, in the January of that year, and every day of that year I did one thing towards that ultimate goal of becoming an author. So the very early days, my one step a day were really simple little things, little progress, like I'd finished drafting that chapter or whatever it was, I set up a Twitter account, whatever. So it's small little things that I did. And what I would do is I would blog about them once a week. So I would blog my 7 actions, usually on a Saturday or a Sunday, and share that. But actually at the time, it didn't really matter if nobody was reading it, if nobody was looking at it, because I was doing it for my own personal development. I was doing it because it was a way of holding myself accountable. But the funny thing is, the minute you start putting stuff out there, the minute you suddenly feel like you're responsible to your audience, however small they are. So even though I had, people looking at my blog, I had probably, maybe 20 or 30 views of my blog a month. I didn't get very many comments at all. People generally don't comment on blogs. I had more activity through social media with people kind of just encouraging me, friends, family saying, "Hey, rock on, oh, I'm so pleased you're making progress." Whatever. Just those little bits of encouragement and setting up this routine for myself to do one thing every day and get progressively more and more ambitious with those one things. Originally, my plan was to publish the book in the December, and as a net result of holding myself accountable, of using the blog for this personal development to actually reach this ultimate goal of publishing a book, I actually ended up publishing the book in the June of that year. And so the first half of the blog was very much about my journey and towards getting the book published, and then the second half was very much about my journey into actually getting out there and hopefully people buying it. So I was sharing how I was marketing the book and the business that I was building, if you like, for myself as a writer. So this was all going on while I still had a day job, while I was working full-time for the Enterprise Agency in Bristol. So I had a day job working with startups, and then I had my own kind of part-time startup, if you like, as an author. And that very quickly ended up snowballing into me completing the final books of the Sheridan and Blake series. I've published my 4 novels in my maiden name, which is Amy C. Fitzjohn. So go and check them out on Amazon. You'll find them on my website, whatever. But that, in a sense, was my kind of part-time business. And in 2015, when the Enterprise Agency closed down, that gave me the opportunity, having kind of realised that, enterprise is a thing. Starting my own business is possible. It doesn't have to just be a bit of a hobby thing. It could actually be a proper job. And it was working for an enterprise agency and supporting other startups that changed my whole mindset and my whole thinking about working for myself. So in 2015, when I was made redundant from the enterprise agency, at that point I brought my world as a novelist and my world as a business advisor and a trainer into one place. And of course, at that point, I'd been blogging consistently for a couple of years. When I started my new blog for my business, for my Amy Morse consultancy business, of course, my natural progression was to continue to blog, to have a separate blog. So I now keep 2 blogs. One is very much just my life as a writer on my Amy C. Fitzjohn website, and the other one is the linchpin, if you like. It's the foundation of everything I do within my business. Because through that process of blogging, of sharing that knowledge, of sharing that expertise, of working with businesses, I've kind of become a bit of an expert in blogging. So that's now how I help businesses, is with mentoring them through blogging and through writing a book. And I suppose that the purpose of this webinar, in a sense, is just to kind of firstly share that story with you, but also get you thinking and hopefully get you motivated and perhaps a bit inspired to actually think about blogging in a slightly different way, because I have built my entire business around blogging and will continue to do so and have kind of ambitious plans for the future. I've built online tools now. I'm releasing a whole new set of packages for 2018, so watch this space, because my website is currently being redesigned, so that will be hopefully, fingers crossed, will be launching in March, so you'll be able to see a lot more about what I actually do and how I really want to help businesses and help people with their writing and help them to learn to love their words, which actually will be the name of the new website, learntoloveyourwords.com. Anyway, so for me, blogging has been an essential part of my own personal and creative development because it allowed me as a writer to build a business doing the thing that I'm going to do anyway, which is writing. So win. Like, you can't argue with that. So for me, it's been a very powerful tool, and there is no reason whatsoever why that can't apply to other businesses, because at the end of the day, all the internet is, and if you're trading online, then it's important to be aware of this. All the internet is just content. It's stuff that people have created and put out there. Google and other search engines are a way of navigating your way through that. Social media is a way of sharing that, building relationships and building links through content. And actually, when it comes to your business, your blog is the focus of your content, if you like, because what you're wanting to do is take people away from social media, take people out of other forums and bring them into your shop, bring them to you and convert them into customers so that they move forward with your business and keep your business alive and build those relationships, if you like. So the two reasons really to be sharing your content, in other words, your blogs, I suppose, on social media is to attract people into your business. So there's two ways you would do that, either by bringing people to your website where you can control and convert them. That sounds really sinister. I don't mean it to, but you can control and convert that traffic. You control the information that's on there. You own all the copyright for it. You can do what you like with it. You are the editor of that website, if you like, of that online magazine. You can kind of think of it, of that story. So the first reason is to bring people to your website, and a blog will do that for you, but also to start conversations. That's the reason for being on social media, really, is to start conversations and engage with people. So again, you can bring them into your world. So having a blog on your website, I mean, from an SEO point of view, from search engine optimization, in other words, getting into the top of Google, there's a 97% people are more, 97% more likely to find your website if it has a blog on it. But really, the way that works is that if you think of your blog as your kind of online shop, and then you think of your behaviour as a consumer, when you walk into a store, the longer you spend browsing around that shop, the more likely you are to either buy something or remember that shop for when you do want to buy something, or you want a recommendation, or somebody else for a recommendation for something. So essentially, that's what your blog does for your business. It keeps your website alive, gives people a reason to come in and browse. So that's the kind of SEO element, the bringing people into your website side of it. But for you personally, it's a very powerful tool. And I'm going to just share 4 very quick kind of instances of that, really. 4 examples, I suppose you would call it, of how a blog can be such a powerful personal development tool for you and your business. Because actually, if you are at the heart of your business, if you are the leader in your business, then the business is very much built around you. It's your passion, it's what you love, it's the why that you have in your heart, that you're out there doing what you do, why you do it, what you love doing, kind of thing. So it's very much going to be around you and your personality and your style, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's really genuinely unique about your business, about any business, is the person at the heart of that business who started that business, if you like. So I hope that all makes sense. I should say that if you do have any questions or any comments or anything that you want to say while I'm chatting through, because I'll just get carried away, because I just talk about blogging. I could talk about blogging till the cows come home. I'm giving myself like half an hour, 45 minutes this morning to talk about this one element of it, but it's my life. I talk about so many different elements of it, and I have webinars every month on different elements of blogging, so I could talk until the cows come home about blogging. In fact, yesterday I ran a whole 4-hour workshop in Bath for small businesses on blogging and SEO, so I can talk about it forever. But if you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to say as we go through, on the right hand side, at least it's right on my screen, so I would assume it probably isn't on your screen as well, there's a little chat box, so there's chat questions on there. So if you go into the chat box, and if you've got anything you want to say, then just tap it in there, click reply, and I'm really happy to take questions as we go along, or respond to any comments. So fire away if there's anything you want to get involved in. You want to get in on the action. So, okay, my 4 things that I want to share with you this morning. So, having a blog, blogging regularly helps you to find your voice. Now, just to kind of define that for you a little bit, really. A lot of the work I do when I'm mentoring people on their blogs or on their books, on the blogs in particular, really, is kind of unlearning that academic jargon speak that we end up being kind of conditioned to use within our business and within our lives, kind of thing. It's very much about sharing a little piece of you. Now, how much you share of you in your personal life is completely up to you. You know, have boundaries that you're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, the only thing that truly makes you unique, or your business unique, because, you know, there's plenty of coaches and personal trainers and nutritionists and business coaches and trainers and, you know, whatever out there. There are plenty of other businesses doing similar things to what you're doing, to what I'm doing. So your unique selling point, I suppose, if you like, that you can only genuinely, really, truly say is unique about your business and the way you approach it, to you. And what makes you unique is your story. So actually, sharing part of your story will help you find your voice. And the way I talk about a voice in this kind of context, I suppose, if you like, is that when buyers kind of come into your business, they kind of go on a bit of a journey. First of all, when they're wanting to passively engage with you, if they're interested in what you say, whether or not they need your product now, or whether they're looking for a particular product or service, the first kind of instinct really is just to kind of look out for things that they like, and look for people that they like. That they want to know, kind of. So they want to get to know you, and then they'll start to get to like you, and then you help them to get to know you better, and then they really start to get to like you. And once they've kind of got to know who you are, and probably initially through social media, and then they've kind of engaged in your website, browsed around your shop a bit, read a few of your articles, they start to get to like you and what you have to say and your approach and your honesty and your authenticity and the language that you use, if you like, will resonate with your ideal customer, if you like. So they'll get to know you, they'll get to like you, and then they'll get to trust you. And it's only really when people trust you that they will consider spending any money with you. So firstly, kind of sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom, sharing your expertise about whatever it is you do, because at the end of the day, you're the only expert in your business, because it's your business and it's in your brain to start with, and it's up to you to communicate it. You're communicating that to people, and if they'll start to get to know you, and they'll start to engage with that through your blog and reading your content, and get to like you, and then they get to know you, and then they get to trust you and all the rest of it. At that point, they can kind of become customers. So your voice is very much about sharing a little bit of your personality, letting your personality shine through, not hiding behind jargon and, you know, techno speak kind of thing. Saying it from the heart, I suppose. I mean, you don't want to be too wishy-washy about it. I see lots of stuff where people go a bit over the top, and they just like they talk in kind of street slang and kind of shorthand, and I see so much of this stuff coming out of America. Apologies to kind of Americans watching this. It's all, hey y'all kind of stuff, and you're like, well, that's fine if you're an American, but you know, it's not always going to appeal to everybody. And also sometimes it's just a bit too informal. It's a bit too kind of like, I don't know, you want to be taken seriously as well, I suppose, if you like. So I see lots of kind of jargony stuff, and lots of on the one hand, the really kind of jargony, acronymy things that are a bit technical, a bit academic, that are just a bit dry, and on the other hand, stuff that's excuse me, just so informal and so slangy that it's really hard to kind of engage with, if you like. So it's about finding a balance that shows who you are, a little bit of your personality. And one of the greatest compliments that I've ever had from anybody is meeting somebody for the first time in the flesh who has seen me on social media, who has read my blogs, and they've come up to me and they've straight away just kind of, oh hi Amy, how are you, and kind of come and give me a hug and stuff, and I'm like, hello. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, we've never actually met. I've kind of been following you on social media, I've read your blogs, we've chatted a bit on social media, but I feel like I know you because you look and sound so much like what you write and how you appear on social media. And actually that is possibly one of the greatest compliments you can receive as a business, because if people see you in the online space and feel as though they know you, feel as though they know you well enough to like just complete, come up to you and give you a hug when you're really a complete stranger. I mean, that's a lovely thing to have, and you know that you've kind of cracked it at that point, because what people are doing at that point is they're really getting a sense of who you really are, what you really look like, how you really speak. And if they like you, then fantastic, that you've kind of bridged some of that initial kind of gap, and they're further down that process of potentially wanting to work with you if they're already in that mindset. They feel like they know you well enough to give you a random hug in the street kind of thing. So your voice is very much about how you really speak, and speaking like that in your writing. Obviously, to start with, when you are drafting a blog, the initial thing might just be a brain dump where you just say it like it is. And sometimes, and this is kind of a bit of a tip really, actually, a really great way of just getting that initial brain dump of content out is just to transcribe it, just using your phone or something, into a text document by reading into whatever device you have. And so just speaking it, because one of the things people often say to me, one of the barriers they have around writing is like, oh, I'm great at talking about it, but I'm not very good at writing about it. So talk about it and turn that into writing. And just because you've written it doesn't mean you have to publish it. And in fact, actually, the real writing happens in the edit. So transcribe it to start with, because your voice, the way that you speak, the language you use will naturally shine through it, because you physically said it into your device. And then you can go through and just correct the mechanics of the writing, take out unnecessary words, edit it and proofread it and all the rest of it. And even when you take out all of the clutter that we have in our speech, it still will sound like you. So finding your voice is absolutely one of the biggest benefits, really, I think, of blogging. If you're doing it regularly, you start to build up some confidence around it, then eventually you'll start to get comfortable. You'll find words, you'll find a patter, you'll find a kind of rhythm that ends up feeding through into everything that you write. And it's just about practice. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm tickling my throat. So finding your voice is probably the first thing. The second tip is, the more you talk about what you do and why you do it, the more clarity you have around it, the more confidence you have in talking about it and sharing it with people. So the more you practice articulating it, the clearer it becomes in your own mind. You get a sense of what's working and what's not working, and what people are reacting to and not reacting to, by doing it over and over again. And that kind of process of repetition, of talking it through and articulating it, and being able to kind of refine the way you describe things, can really help you feel a lot more confident in your business and what you're trying to achieve. And it gains a new clarity for you. And when you're confident about it and it's clear for you, then people who are listening to you or reading your blogs will also feel that confidence, and they'll see the clarity behind it. So it works both ways, really. If it's clear and confident for you, then it will be clear and confident for your potential customers. So that really helps to break down some of those barriers and build those bridges, so that people will kind of engage with you and your content. So so the second tip really is, just the more you talk about something, the easier it is to talk about it. If you think about when you're in any kind of social situation, say for example a networking event, or any event where you might meet strangers kind of thing. So one of the first things that we do in that situation, when we kind of located someone in the room that doesn't look too terrifying, maybe they're smiling, maybe we kind of we've heard of them or whatever, or they look like they're quite friendly and open to having a chat. So you might go over, and the initial approach often is just to introduce yourself. And what is the first question that we very often ask somebody when we're in a social situation, when we first meet them? It's, what do you do? That's what we often ask. What do you do for a living? What's your job, kind of thing? Because it's sort of, it kind of defines us in a certain degree to start with, from a cultural perspective. What we do for a living kind of helps people to understand who we are and why we do what we do and what makes us tick, if you like. So it's often one of the first questions that people ask, and especially in a networking situation, because actually the initial thing you want to establish in the room is who's in the room and how can you help them by knowing what they do and how that can interact with what you do, kind of thing. So yes, that's often the first thing that you ask. But so the more you can communicate it, the more you can practice it. Even in a kind of, in the blogosphere, I suppose, if you like, will help you in those social situations, and vice versa as well. If you're going to lots of events and talking about it and getting a sense of what's working for people. So I think at the beginning of this, I still refer to myself as a writing coach, and I kind of, it's a form of words that I'm constantly playing with, because actually I'm really a writing mentor, and I'm just started getting used to using that word mentor instead of coach, because I think it summarizes what I say a lot better. And just from my experience of talking about myself as a mentor as opposed to a coach, people seem to get it more. So scrub that I'm a writing coach, I'm a writing mentor, and I specialise in blogs and books. Anyway, so helping to find a form of words that works, and your blogging is part of that process. And that's the second tip. Just talking about it helps you articulate it, gives you clarity and confidence. And then the third thing is, the more you write, naturally, the more confident you're going to get, the more of a flow you're going to find. You're going to find your voice. You're going to be able to articulate yourself better. The more you do it, the more practice you get, the more you improve. However, we often get to a point, and you may have found this if you've already started blogging or you've done other kind of writing in your career, if you like, that we kind of sometimes we get a bit stale, sometimes we kind of plateau a little bit with our writing. There's only so much improving you can do on your own. You need feedback from other people. And so actually a blog is a fantastic way of getting your words out there, letting them loose in the wild, and then getting feedback from people. And some of the work that I do is actually when people are in that situation, they're getting some feedback, or maybe they're starting to put stuff out and it's going a bit stale, and they've lost their mojo a little bit. And one of the ways that I work with people is I have a monthly subscription service of feedback sessions where you get professional critique and feedback on your writing. So my approach to it is I usually ask people to send it to me on a Word document, and I go through the track changes function on there. I write comments about what I think's working and why, and what isn't working and why. I can't help myself because I'm a little bit of a grammar nut, so I will go through and make any little amendments and explain why I've changed things. And often some of that feedback is just small little writing techniques around thinking about what tense you're using and how you can kind of condense what you're saying, make it more concise. So I can kind of help the people that I work with to be able to kind of write more fluidly, write more consistently, be able to articulate themselves, and to write more accurately, more precisely. I always say as a writer, I can't remember who said this, I think it might have been a Stephen King quote or something, because somebody that I quite often quote, is the best writing is to say a lot with few words. So actually it's about condensing it, being concise, but still having your voice in it, if you like. Being able to have your voice, but make it really sing rather than be a little bit, out of tune. So, feedback, absolutely. And the thing with the writing, practicing it, getting feedback on it leads to improvement. And when you improve your writing skills, that doesn't just improve your blog. Good writing skills, being able to articulate and communicate yourself well in writing, impacts every aspect of your life. If you think about it, every email you ever send, every letter you write, every social media update you write, every application form you might fill in, every funding bid you might fill in, every report that you write, every presentation that you do, every talk that you give, everything that we do, when we are converting the words in our brain, the language that we use, into words, at some stage we need to kind of write that down somewhere. I mean, not all the time, but it's part of our kind of makeup. Like, writing is part of how we communicate with the world, if you like. And so better writing enhances your reputation. I have to confess, I've seriously considered unfriending people who've got really terrible grammar and really bad writing skills on Facebook and things like that. And when people share stuff that's littered with like grammatical errors and stuff, I roll my eyes. I can't help but say, seriously guys, stop perpetuating terrible writing around the internet. It's awful. Anyway, so it enhances your reputation, helps you be able to communicate better. And if you can write well, you can write accurately, then it kind of shows your expertise in a different light, really. People are much more likely to take you seriously. than if your writing is kind of full of errors and it doesn't flow very well or whatever. So good writing has so many implications throughout so many different parts of our business and personal lives. And so the more you're writing, the more you're practicing, the more you're communicating with words, the more you're going to improve, the more feedback you get, and all of that, that just builds, that helps to grow yourself personally and your business. So I think probably one of the biggest reasons why blogging is great for personal development is just that writing skill, really, taking it beyond what you learn in the classroom and what you're conditioned to do at university or whatever, and how you're kind of made to speak in jargon world in the corporate life, and taking it to the next level. So that's my third tip, is just about being better writing. Being a better writer impacts so many different parts of your life. Helps you be a better person today than you were yesterday, which is all good. And then the fourth thing I'm just going to say, and it's a slightly fluffy one in a sense, is that actually blogging is really fun. It's a really cathartic process. It's really lovely to be able to just have the freedom to say what you want to say, to be able to share what's in your heart, what's in your head, what you want to talk about, the things that you're passionate about, the things you have an opinion on, the things that people have said to you and how that's made you feel and how that's made you react and all the rest of it. It's a lovely, enjoyable process to be able to get that out of your brain and be able to share it with others. And often it doesn't even matter if nobody's really seeing it or if you're not getting much feedback. Just that process of getting it out of you and getting it out there, it has such a lovely feeling of freedom, and just releases so many kind of barriers and pressures that we kind of hold on to in our lives. Getting it out there can really kind of feel so much better for ourselves, for our own kind of well-being, if you like. And there's plenty of evidence out there about sort of writing stuff down is so much better for our own mental and spiritual health, if you like. So catharticism is, if nothing else, that's a great way of blogging. It almost doesn't really matter if nobody reads it. You're getting it out of your brain, you're sharing part of yourself, and that just makes you feel so much lighter and so much more accomplished and so much more confident about yourself and your story. Starts to kind of unblock some of those little barriers that we put in our way, and those like hang-ups that we have, and that voice of doubt, I suppose, if you like. So it's a very cathartic process as well. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I've kind of gone through quite a lot of bits and bobs there, and just sort of talked really around the subject, and how actually blogging is so much more than just keeping your website alive, or doing it for mechanical business purposes. It's not as black and white as that. There's a lot more to it than that. A lot of the work I do is then just once you're in that mindset of your writing, it's then how can you actually, I'm going to use a horrible jargon word, leverage. How can you leverage? How can you improve it? What can you do? What little tweaks can you do to improve the writing, to make it more effective, to make it more strategic with your business, to kind of make it work better for SEO, to come up with ideas, all that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of the work I actually do with people. So I hope that helped. I'm just going to recap my 4 little tips very quickly for you. So my first tip was about finding your voice. So actually just finding how you want to communicate and your voice and the language that you want to use in the world and with your clients, and blogging is a fantastic way of discovering your voice, and a good way of actually getting your kind of unlearning, if you like, some of that academic jargony speak that we often use, and being more conversational and more approachable and having more of your personality into it, is to actually voice record what you want to say. And if you feel like you're better at speaking than writing, voice recording is a great way to get your words onto the page, I suppose, if you like. So finding your voice is the first tip. The second tip is just the more you talk about what you do in writing and in person, but in this context, in writing especially, the more clarity it takes on for you, the more confident you feel about it. And if you're confident and it's clear for you, then your potential customers will have confidence in you because it will be clear to them. So talking about it will help it be more clear for you and help you be more confident. Number 3, better writing impacts so many different parts of our life, and so blogging is a great way of practicing that skill and learning that skill, and getting some valuable feedback as well on what you're doing, so that you can continue to improve. And then the 4th tip was just about how it's actually quite enjoyable and cathartic. So my final thought I'm going to leave you with is just get out there and just write. Just because you've written it doesn't mean you have to publish it. write it somewhere, publish it when you're ready, when it works for your business. And if you want to talk about that in more detail with me, how to decide, make those decisions, then give me a shout, bounce me an email or whatever, and we can have a chat. That's no problem. So yeah, my biggest piece of advice really is that actually to go out there and just learn to love your words and just write for the sheer joy of hearing the clickety clack of the keyboard under your fingers and the scratch of that nib of your pen on the page, just for the sheer pleasure of doing it. Get out there and write and enjoy the process. And if you can enjoy it, then you will always learn something new from it. So I really hope that helps, and hope to see you at a future webinar. I will send this recording out to everybody who's got a ticket. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.